Welcome to the Runna podcast. Today we spoke to Zac Clark, and running found Zac really when he needed it to. From being diagnosed with a brain tumor in his early 20s, through to finding himself in rehab, overcoming his addiction to drugs and alcohol, did Zac really find running. And since then, he's gone on to do countless marathons, including running the marathon in New York the past 11 years in a row. And all the while has he not only transformed his life, but he's helping others do the same as well, having set up an amazing foundation, the Release Recovery Foundation. You are going to love listening to today's episode. Hey, Zac, how are you?
I am good. I am grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be here talking about running. I talk about a lot of things on a lot of different podcasts, but if I could talk about running all day, I would. So here we are.
Can you take us back to your first run? When or why did you go on your first ever run?
In this iteration of my existence, so I'm not a runner per se. I know a lot of people say that. I am now, proudly. I played 3 sports growing up, so football, basketball, baseball. So there was always some running involved in that. And I often think about, I had this regret because I was a pitcher in baseball, and a big part of pitching is getting your cardiovascular and running. And I always hated running, so I would quit, or I would cheat, the system. And I always think about how much better I could have been if I had the love for running. But my journey really started. I am someone in long-term recovery, which means I haven't had a drink or a drug in over 14 years. So I was actually in rehab back in August of 2011. And I was, just to set this stage, I was 250 something pounds, and I was 27 years old, and I was not living my best life, fair to say. And there was this little hill out front, and I've talked to a lot of people about this. There was this hill out front of the treatment center. And one morning I woke up and I said, I'm going to walk up the hill a couple times just to get the blood moving. And I did that for, call it 2-3 weeks. And I was in this program for about 4 months. And about a month into that journey, I took my first step, towards running. I said, I'm actually going to try to run up this hill. And so when I got out of rehab and I moved to New York City, I was curious about running from that.
And I'd love to talk through the journey that took you to go into rehab. But I think the point at which you had the motivation to go up that hill and walk up the hill, it's almost not surprising that you now, yesterday, finished your marathon the 11th time. As in, it is surprising in the way that is crazy and this incredible journey that we need to learn about. But at the same time, endorphins and exercise make sense. It's something that compounds over time. It's something that rewards, it inspires, and it's why people go on to do these incredible things. Do you mind sharing the journey that led you to kind of being in rehab and being at this different point in your life?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm someone who's very open about my journey. I think it's important for people to know that part of me and then see this part of me, right? And if they can draw the line of inspiration between the two, then I did my job for the day. The long and short of it is I love to party. I loved to party, absolutely loved drugs, loved alcohol. And, from 13 to 27, I didn't draw many sober breaths, but I was able to get through life. I'm someone who is a high achiever in the sense that I will get it done regardless of what is going on. And so whether it was playing college baseball or graduating college on time or getting my first job out of school, despite the fact that I knew there was probably something going on internally with the drug and alcohol use, I still managed to get things done. And so what eventually happened was I had a brain tumor after I got out of college, and I ended up in the hospital for, I guess it was 3 weeks. And I remember a couple things about that experience. One was the doctor came into my hospital room the night before and said, we can't wait. We need to take this thing out immediately because you might die. And I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared to die in that moment because I was living such a putrid existence. And then I got the surgery and I was introduced to opioids, opiate level painkillers, which I'm sure that many of your listeners know, they're very addictive. And no one took the time to explain to me, what was going to happen from then on out. And then, and the next 5 years got kind of ugly.
Well, I think it's incredible the way that you've turned your life around as a result. Do you think that it is just opioids? Or do you think that you have an addictive personality which you now put to being addicted to something great?
I mean, look, I have an addicted personality, and I have conversations with friends about this all the time. Like, I don't give a shit about the labels, whether it's addiction, whether it's just more, whether I like feeling good. If I'm able to channel some of my energy towards these positive behaviors, then I'm going to keep doing that, because I can tell you that I wake up a pretty happy guy. But, yeah, I mean, when I was active, it was drugs, it was alcohol, it was thrill seeking, it was, you name it, food, sex. I mean, like, all the things, whatever was affecting my dopamine and making me feel a certain way, I was going to chase that. So naturally, I actually saw something the other day which spoke to me more than anything on Instagram. It said, a 6-mile run is equivalent to like 50 milligrams of morphine or something. I said, oh, that's why. And so yeah, of course there's a line here.
And at the same time, not only have you gone on to do a lot of run, you've also been able to set up businesses and really change your life in so many ways. Do you think having had running as a through line has helped you to do everything else?
I said this the other day. I do a lot of media around the New York City Marathon. I love the New York City Marathon. When I moved here in 2012, I had no idea how important my relationship with running was going to be and how important my relationship with the New York City Marathon was going to be. It's one of the most important relationships in my life because of what it has given me day after day. I could name the list of things that running has given me. And all my list of accomplishments, I really look at this sport, this game, which I love to call it, that is so personal to me, right? As one of the greatest things I get to do each day.
So we're at rehab and you decide to run up the hill.
Yeah.
And you're 250 pounds.
Yeah.
How did that go? And then how was your entry into running thereafter?
My running journey has been, so it went great because I had no fundamental concept of what was good or what was bad. Time wise, distance wise, I just was moving. What I would do when I started to finally get moving a little bit more and be able to, at the time, jog, and I was probably, 10, 11, 12 minute miles or kilometers, however you guys measure. And it went great. I would just go out 15 minutes and I would come back 15 minutes. And I knew if I went in a straight line away from wherever I was, whether it was the rehab center or when I moved to New York, the place I was living, I had to get home. And so that's just like the mindset I had about it. It was so easy. It was so simple. It was running in its purest form. And it has since, I would say there's been really 3 phases of my running journey, which is the initial kind of rookie adolescent stage where I was just so free spirited and free minded. I didn't have a Garmin. I didn't have a watch. I didn't have anything going. I had nothing tracking my statistics. I would just go out at 9:05 and say, I'm going to come home at 9:35. No heart rate. And then I got the bug. I watched the New York City Marathon in 2014, 13 or 14, but whichever it was. And I vowed myself that I would run the marathon every year from that moment forward, which I've been able to do. I just ran my 11th. And so the first 11 marathons I did, still, I was adolescent. I was free. I was a rookie. I was a novice. Social media was not what it is today. So that I didn't feel this pressure that we oddly put on ourselves. And I would go out and I'd run between 3:45 and 4:15 and be happy.
That's really interesting because when I met you today, I asked you how the marathon went and you did better than the range you just spoke of.
Yeah.
But you didn't achieve the goal you wanted.
Yeah.
And you sounded frustrated by your day? So yeah, you ran, what time did you run?
I ran 3:27:33, which was, I did 3:16 last year. It was 11 minutes slower, and I trained much harder this year, which is just athletics. It's sports. I get it. I struck out 4 times yesterday. I'll have another opportunity to hit the home run.
Did you enjoy it less than, as you said, when you were more of a rookie and you wanted between 3:45 and 4:15? And
so there's a whole other purpose here, right? So part of my story, as I mentioned, is I got sober, and I was a heroin addict, and I was smoking crack cocaine, and I really hit a place in my life where I didn't think I was going to live. My mental health, my substance abuse, addiction, whatever you want to call it. And in 2019, I started, which I'm wearing here, a foundation. I started a business in 2017 helping people recover. And that's doing well. That's here in New York City and up in where we're filming in Westchester County, which is north of the city here, if your listeners don't know. And then we have a program in Texas. And then in 2019, we started a foundation, and we had little to no idea what was going to happen. And we said if we could help one person, this is going to be a home run, get the gift that I was given of recovery. And yesterday we had 122 runners running the New York City Marathon, and we raised over $750,000 for people. So time is just a time. That's the real juice. And so you asked me if I felt better or worse. I don't know. I felt disappointed, which I'm allowed to feel. I get my permission to feel that, but also really proud. I saw this logo all over the course being worn by people I don't know. How cool is that? You've probably experienced that with Runna. Like, you go out into the world and all of a sudden your logo is everywhere. And it's incredible.
No, I think running is so much more than a time. Yeah. But at the same time, on an individual basis, of course, we want to strive for progress. And the way to measure that is a historical time, and therefore we try and shave off the time to do that. And if it was easy and every time we succeeded, it wouldn't feel amazing when you complete it.
Have you always been a runner?
Not always. I guess I started running meaningfully kind of at the end of my university of 21. I'm 29 now. I've been a pretty consistent runner at that time, but I didn't run growing up.
And you find greater joy in the training others or training yourself?
I love moving my body, and I love going a long way and doing hard things. But I also love, like you speak of, helping people.
Right. That's why
I used to do it in a normal way, being a coach and seeing people's bodies change, seeing people's happiness when they go a bit faster or go a bit further or can pick something up they're not used to be able to pick up. And I now don't have that same feeling because we're an online business. But instead, we had, for example, yesterday, we had a hub where people come and celebrate their achievement, come and get a photo at the finish line, come and meet us. And seeing people come and meet me, and I've been in their app for the last 16 weeks or whatever, and they come and tell me thank you. It's crazy, right? I've never met this person. We work hard building a tech business, and then someone comes and thanks me, and it feels strange. But I kind of now start to get that feeling of helping people again in a very different way. But I think that is much greater in terms of its like value than like something that we can do. Like one person ourselves, we're an irrelevant nothing. So if I go and take my marathon time down by 2 minutes, I'm not going to win a marathon. I'm not really going to do very much in the grand scheme of things. But at the same time, if we go and make an improvement to the app that goes and reduces the risk of someone's injury or whatever, that's so much more meaningful. So probably the answer is I enjoy the helping side of things. And so I can very much relate to the way that you reflect and evaluate.
I mean, running for me, I just ask because at the end of the day, I have to live in that space where not just in running, but in life, am I helping others, right? Am I making the world a better place? And you've done that with this community that you built. I mean, I saw the cheer station out there yesterday. Kudos to you, no pun intended, with the Stravas. I mean, like, it's been really cool to watch. For me, running is a spiritual game. It's a spiritual game. I learned that anyone can do it. And I'm a freak. So I'm asking everyone who ran well yesterday how they did it. And the two things that I've come to find out is there's two people that I think do well in marathons. One is the person who ran early in life. So they ran high school cross country or they ran collegiately, and then, they kind of put it down, but they had that base still, and they get back into marathon running and they go out and run a 3-hour marathon pretty easily. And then there's these kind of hybrid triathletes that have built this huge engine, and then they go and they run a marathon, and they're so fit that where I bombed yesterday at 20 miles, they don't, because they're used to being in that place. And so I look at those two groups of people, which I'm neither of those. I didn't run growing up, and I'm certainly not a triathlete. I do not swim.
But that's interesting because, and I probably put myself in that second category of someone who does a lot of volume, a lot of cycling, a lot of running, and as a result, I'm good when they've gone for a long time, like a marathon. But you've done 11 New York marathons.
Yeah.
And I assume you're going to be doing the marathon next year.
Oh, yeah.
So, therefore, we need to look at what those people do over the last 12 months. You need to try and do more of that over the next 12 months, and you may well improve massively. And I guess a big part of that is the volume of consistent training that type of kind of individual does. And just building up that volume, which will hopefully mean that the latter stages, whether it's mile 18, mile 20, when maybe things struggled yesterday, you'll be that much stronger for in the future.
I do. Look, I have no regrets. There's all this energy right now around the running boom and how so many people are getting into it. And I accept that people are going to come into this space and be just gifted athletes that have a much easier time with this process than I do. It's taken me many years to get to where I am. And I have to remember that. And I also have to remember that the running community welcomed me 11 years ago. So who am I to now say, oh, this is getting too crowded, right? This community has been so special to me. And so when I see that stuff, it kind of throws me off a little bit. I mean, I'm spoiled every year. I get the opportunity to kind of go and take the bus over to a VIP kind of celebrity tent. And 5 years ago, there was 5 or 6 of us running. And yesterday, there was 35. And that was so cool to see how people everything from first timers to, some pretty well-known folks are catching the bug.
That is the thing about running, is that it is so infectious. And then, it's the fastest growing sport in the world.
Is that right? Is that proven? Yeah.
In absolute terms, in terms of, there are sports that are growing faster by percentage, but in absolute volume, it is the fastest.
Well, London and New York keep having this competition over who's the largest marathon. We might, because I think London took it in April, and then I just saw the thing today. New York had 59,000 something yesterday. So, London in April is going to try and get up to 60. And so that alone is going to keep this community growing.
And so looking ahead, what is your goal within running?
I mean, I'd love to talk to you about that. Now, I mean, I know we're sitting here doing an interview, but, I am a guy that I'm 41. I don't know how much age plays into one's ability to compete. I mean, my dream is to run a sub 3. That's just my dream. I know that I'm not very close to that today. I think I will do anything in my power to do that, whether that's in 5 years or 3 years or in 2026. I think where I am landing, and you as a coach will know better, and I will, I have a coach and I rely on coaching and the information that's available. I think for me, I need to get faster at shorter distances. I think I need to get my 5K down. I need to get my 10K down. And then see where that takes me. But I could be wrong.
But I mean, understanding, and I'll try and help, but to kind of set the scene. So, what was your marathon PB before? Well, obviously, what is your marathon PB?
I did a 3:13.
Okay. And when was that?
That was April. Well, no, that was June of, not this summer, but last summer.
Okay. So, it's interesting you speak of your age as 41. Our marathon peak or our kind of like biological peak when it comes to like endurance sport is often between 35 and 40. So you're like much closer to your peak than I might be at 29.
Right.
And at the same time, one should only go downhill after that like biological peak if we've done the absolute optimal life to get to that point. So like the persona that you spoke of, which is that person who runs growing up, does all the optimal training all the way through, means that they should hit that kind of biological peak in age at the point where they've done all the perfect training. There's no way that they could be better, and therefore they should decline, unfortunately, for the rest of their life. You're clearly not in that point, whereby, as you said, you haven't done the optimal journey to get to where you are today. And so while your body may start to age very little for now, but it will accelerate in its aging journey as you get into your 50s and 60s thereafter, you've still got a huge opportunity left to keep improving from a training perspective. So to start with, I'd massively not count out age. I would be very confident that if you trained optimally for the next 5 or 10 years, you'll probably keep improving up until 50. You'll probably struggle to keep improving thereafter, but that's also partly driven by how fit you get in that time.
Right.
But so I think just like starting off with, I'd definitely say, given where you are, you did a 3:13 last year. You're not a million miles away from that today. You can currently run a marathon and still run a marathon very well. You should definitely believe that that can be done. Then looking at you and briefly understanding your running journey, you've clearly got a phenomenal endurance that you can go crush out a marathon or a few marathons every year. So I would also agree that probably the thing you need to do is improve your speed. And then you couple that with this endurance that you really do have, that you could be doing very, very well. Yeah. And in reality, it may well be the case that you had an off day yesterday and that you are able to do a 3:13 your best if yesterday had gone differently, or maybe you're a little bit behind that. But with a year of good training, someone can take a 3:15 to a sub 3. And then we also need to remember that New York is a really, really tough course.
Tough course.
So I massively want to tell you that it's of course possible. It's funny to need to tell it back to you, but you've overcome infinitely harder things than shaving off 15 minutes of a marathon time. And the things you need to do to shave that final chunk off to get this arbitrary number, but I can understand and resonate with why we want these numbers, is just doing what you have done before, but doing relentless, consistent hard work.
Well, then that's the thing that I think for me, I have to remember, which is I'm not doing this professionally. A lot of these folks who end up in your algorithm on social media, they are working with brands. They are running all day. Their entire lives are revolved around the sport. And so for me, it's a choice as well. Like, how much do I want to choose running over a social life and over, spending time with people I care about? Because at the end of the day, to train the way that I know that I need to train, that's a lot of sacrifice.
And that's also time away from not just family and social life, but away from working on business, working on foundation.
Yeah.
But I think that is exactly the way that you should weigh it up. And it's the way I would always try and encourage someone to think about it from a coaching perspective, which is that like the most important thing that we do as runners is be happy. And so whether that's training for a marathon or a 5K, the most important thing that hopefully anyone who trains with Runna as well can achieve is that they achieve their goal and they are happy. And I don't doubt that you could achieve a sub 3-hour marathon. Maybe it takes you 12 months, maybe it takes you 6 months, maybe it takes you 18 months. But there'd be no point in that if it came at sacrifice in a way that on balance, your life was worse. Hopefully you'd be able to do it in a way that you felt so much fulfillment and pride that you were happier for it.
Yeah.
You're healthier for it. And it probably gave you strength or clarity in other areas of your life that it all nested out to be better. But if it didn't, it wouldn't be worthwhile. And then the thing that you need to do is to work out how you can give your running training the priority it needs in a way that complements the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And very much that's a case of understanding yourself and working out the way that you stack these things. But I have to go through the same thought process, which is I'm not a professional athlete. I'm also not as fast as I was before Runna. I've done a 2:34 marathon. My best of the last few years since Runna's been around is 2:48. So I'm a similar level behind on the goal that I would want if I want to do
What's your reach? 2:30? You think you do a 2:20?
I think if during where I am right now, I would love to do a PR, like in my lifetime, which doesn't sound that crazy. I'm 29. But I'm, whatever that is, 13 minutes away from my best. And obviously as you get faster, it gets harder and harder to shave that time. But so I think it's possible, but for it to be possible, I probably need to work less hard. And I really like, kind of going back to what we said before, I really like the purpose that I get from working very hard at Runna. So it becomes a bit of a selfish trade. Do I want to prioritize myself? And probably to bring back some of the hours that I work from work to prioritizing myself, sleeping more, cooking, eating better. And it's not just the running itself, and also probably cycling less because I love my cycling. And all of these things. And also in a position that I could probably choose how to prioritize my time. And it's hard to know what's best. And I guess that's the same decision you're going to make.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I'm 12 years older than you, so something happens when you turn 40 where you start to really understand that the things that feel heavy and like they matter just don't. And so for me, I don't have any shame in saying it out loud that I love running. It's something that brings a lot of joy to me. It's something that has given me unbelievable experiences, the opportunity to travel, the opportunity to raise money for folks that can't afford to get the help they deserve, a sense of personal accomplishment that I would challenge myself really deeply to find anywhere else. And so looking at my life in kind of these stages, I'm not someone that's ever been like afraid to die. I could walk out of this building today, and something could happen. So while I'm here, I feel like it's important for me to do the things that I want to do. And I've established that like running is one of the things that I want to do. It's one of the things that I want to get better at, continue to work at. And I don't actually believe that, in my experience, when I have my best training blocks and I'm really focused, I actually feel like I have more time because my life is structured in a way where, getting up early to run. And in those days, and you know how it is, you go for that morning run. And as a business owner, mental clarity.
Well, it was always funny because the way I was letting you speak, but the way I was going to say it is that we're in like similar positions to some extent. We both aren't quite where we want to be. We have to balance our lives. So the way to think about finding a solution is like, what advice would you give to each other?
Right.
And I'm there kind of listening and I'm being like, you could definitely do it. You could definitely go and get your sub-3. And it wouldn't really have to trade against all those other things because you'll probably come up with your best ideas to make foundation, make work better while you're nailing your training. And you kind of like make time, which is funny, but it's easy to say that or think it for you, but that's hard to go and like apply it to yourself.
My big, like, if we're going to tell a truth about running, I struggle to get out the door. Like I dilly dally, like I waste all this time. Like I just need to throw the shoes on and go.
I know what you mean. I agree. I find that for me, and I think it's understanding what it is about your dilly dallying, because if you can unpack it, you can maybe find the solution. For me, I know I don't like training on my own as much. So like if I could look at my week and make sure I'm like doing training with a friend for that day, going to the track, even if I'm doing different workouts, but just like going to the track with my girlfriend or like meeting a friend at the track, and we do our own workouts. We warm up together. I'm at the track. I may as well train my absolute hardest, but it is getting out the door to that moment, putting on my kit. So for me, it's then probably planning out my time, making sure that I have these things to keep me accountable, and then I'll nail it. And it's also hard to do that if I don't have the time. But like, those are probably the two things I need to achieve my goals. And I should very much like sit down after this conversation and like make it happen. Like, what is holding you back? Like, what stops you from dilly-dallying?
I think it comes back to a lot of, I think self-doubt, probably like self-doubt, like, you know, as someone who's had some success, I'm still my own toughest critic. A lot of times those days I'm feeling down around workouts that maybe I don't think I can actually do. And that's why running is so special, because you go out there and you roll some miles and you start to feel like you're on top of the world, and you reinforce the fact that you can do hard things. I mean, and then some of it's just like pure laziness, you know. I've always been a procrastinator, whether it would be in school or however you want to draw it off, and procrastination is really just putting things off, and so until the very last minute. So if I wake up at 5:30 to go for a run, I know I only have to run 5 miles that morning. It's going to take me 40 minutes or whatever it is. I'll push it up to the very last minute to get out the door so that I have time when I get home to shower or do whatever. I mean, it's just a funny game that I play.
It's interesting the point you made around being scared to go and do a workout because you're scared you might not be able to do it.
Right.
But I bet you the workouts that you've been scared to do, not quite nailed, still made your day better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, like, I mean, I feel the same. Like, I don't think it's a strange thing to do, which is to see a frightening workout, kind of keep pushing it back in the day or whatever it is. And then to like, that when you've done it, you then still feel good. That if we could have been like to ourselves, even when we're dreading it, the worst case scenario, you have this daunting workout. The worst case scenario is it doesn't go perfectly. But even when that happens, which happens most of the time, you're still glad that happened. So we may as well just get out the door and do it. But it's very hard to like take your own feedback, see that through, and not get that paralysis and stopping yourself about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stressful, as an overall universe, world, whatever you want to call it. I feel like we have backed ourselves into a corner where I overthink everything because of the access to media, because of the access to people, because of the access to information. And part of my recent kind of discovery in this running space is like, I don't need to check the weather. I don't need to know what my heart rate is. I don't like, at some point, yes, those are things that are helpful to maybe look at, but the best runs are always the ones where I just go out and go. And I have a free spirit. And I always talk with friends. I have this, you know, platform, whatever it is. And if I choose to train publicly, it's not just me that's looking at things. And I don't think that I've ever been judged for my time. I mean, people, you know, are nice. They're all very supportive in this stuff. But I know that the second I finish a run, that's being posted to Strava, for example, and like, can I just get to a place where I just don't care? And I'm a human being. So, you know, sure, if I have a good workout, do I want people to see it so I feel a little jazzy? Of course. And vice versa, you know. I don't have shame in admitting that. I think everyone who trains for something wants to be acknowledged for the hard work.
Yeah, I think we just got to find a way to make sure that it stacks up to being more motivational than like unmotivational.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think it is for all of us, which is why we share our journeys, so that we can get that sense of accomplishment when we get out the door. People tell you well done. There's probably a few people out there who do look in and be like, oh, he didn't do very well. You said out at the end.
Yeah.
But like,
one of those people was me, by the way.
Well, yeah, but I think also like, and that's going to mean that when you are struggling at the end of your next marathon, when you're on 2:59 and you're on track, you're not going to slow down, because you know that like keyboard warrior or whatever it is, the annoying follower you have that's checking on you and gonna whatever, that you're going to prove them wrong.
I mean, I had a buddy yesterday, and you'll appreciate this, Ben. His goal was 340, and he ran a 3:39:59. I mean,
That's perfect. Like, but
of all the things that you do on a marathon, the stop, the Gatorade, it's 1 second.
But I love the funniness of like that, because like it's completely out of his control. During like he didn't know if someone was going to trip up in front of him, if like all of the things that could have happened. Like he's not that good at pacing, but it is quite funny. But it's also funny because if he had been 2 seconds slower, he would have been devastated, which is nonsense, because there's probably 2 seconds in the like chip timing accuracy of the actual thing. The actual distance of the course will probably have 5 meters of error.
I watched him showing almost 27 miles yesterday. And it was
and there's the GPS error, and then there's the actual like error in mapping the course. But no, it's hilarious. One of the guys who worked at the gym that I like grew up going to. He wanted to do his first marathon, and at the time I think it must have been 22, 23. I helped him a bit with his training. And it was his first marathon. He wanted to break 4 hours. He did 3 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds, and he's never done marathons since.
done.
Which is just so fun. Like, he wanted to break the 4 hour mark. He did it to the exact second.
Yeah.
And what was even funnier is that on his watch, it was 4:00:00. But then, because he obviously stopped his watch just after the finish line, he got the 3:59 on the official chip and never ran a marathon since. Which is funny. And also, I think, maybe a shame. Because maybe he's missing out on the joy of doing more.
I mean, look, I'm committed to I think I was, and I don't know if you have the answer for this, but you tell that story. I told the story I told. I have this brain that kind of allows myself to go and think, who came up with the marathon? Like, this distance is so perfect and so pure. And those last 4 miles, the way that your body gets to this point at 21 miles, the physiological thing that happens there. And then those last 5 miles, which I've felt really good for and felt terrible for, like yesterday. Mm. You know, this distance was created when, in the 1800s, or like, it's
almost so random and so arbitrary. Which is that I think if the marathon was 28 miles long or 24 miles long, we'd feel the exact same.
Right.
Because I think it's about when you get close to the finish line, you kind of get this extra wind of energy. Like, if the marathon was 40 miles long, I think less people would do it. But people would still be able to do it. Because, like, I think it's like the question of like physicality versus mentality, which is that in reality, if someone had a gun to your head or to the people you care about most in the world's head, you would never stop. You'd probably keep running until you like disintegrate into the ground, which would be like way further than the marathon.
Yeah.
But in reality, when you start fading at 18 miles, you couldn't hold an imaginary gun to the heads of the people you love the most. So you let yourself slow down. And there is an element that maybe one more gel or one better day of training or better night's sleep, you're getting real physical things would have helped. But like, it is realizing that there is this huge mental side to it as well. But no, the reason for the distance being the distance is because it's the distance from Athens to the town of Marathon, or the other way around, of a soldier running to tell the town that the war was over, and he ran the marathon, reported the news that they won the battle, and then passed out and died. And that is the distance. And then to make it work amazingly in places like London and New York, they've had to like re-engineer the route so that you're finishing in the perfect place. And so I think, maybe I'm probably going to be misquoting, but I think it's something like the route was 26 miles. And then to make it, the reason why it's at 22 is that they wanted it to finish basically down the mile in London, in front of the Queen's house, or the King's house. So there's all of these stories, and I'm probably not telling the 100% factual truth to it, but it is a relatively arbitrary distance that is so historical. And it wasn't because they did all these studies on humans and blood and oxygen and worked out that was the perfect distance for the perfect challenge. It's just a random distance from history that we've now agreed is the distance, and we all fight to our best at it. We're going to segue here to Steph for our coaching tip of the week.
Don't forget the power of easy runs. Easy runs are the foundation of every training plan. They build aerobic endurance, help your body adapt to training stress without overdoing it. Don't let ego drive the pace. If you can't hold a conversation, you're probably going too fast.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by the Runna app, the #1 rated running coaching service worldwide. And if you want to try the app today, use code podcast25 for 2 weeks totally for free. And please do remember to rate, follow and subscribe to us on your listening platform to help us climb the rankings and so that we can keep bringing you the most interesting and amazing guests.
Thank you so much for that, Steph. We're going to come back with our dilemma of the week. So, Zac, you've completed the marathon in New York 11 times in the last 11 years. What do you think the marathon teaches us about discipline and about pushing through the hard times?
I just believe that in life, so much of it is about you're going to get out what you put into it. And for me, I probably ran the time yesterday that I was supposed to run based on the training block that I had, all things considered, if I'm being really honest with myself. Right. And so if I take delusion out of it, the marathon is very fair. And I believe that life is very fair. When you work hard at something, typically it is going to be worth it. And that's been my experience with the marathon.
And so saying that, and reflecting back on training, where did you cut the corners, or what didn't you do to mean that you got a time that you were slightly disappointed by?
I don't think I slept well. I don't think I ate well. I know that I didn't strength train enough. Keep my, the squats and the deadlifts and the things that have really been helpful to me in the past were kind of non-existent. And work and personal life had me traveling a lot. And so there were probably 5 to 8 workouts in there where it was dialed up for 16 and I got 13 in, or whatever it was. But I think for me, I'm okay to do that once or twice in a block. But when that starts to kind of stack and you give yourself permission to pull the ripcord early, it shows up on race day.
I think that's, of course, correct. But it's also great to be able to reflect, work that out, because you know what to do next time.
I'm not delusional about this. It's a very, again, I'll go back to spiritual process. If I would have run every workout and nailed every mile, I bet I would have had a better time yesterday. And the truth is, I took some liberties during my training that I took for whatever reason. Maybe I had to because of other obligations, or maybe I just said 8's going to be good today. I don't have to push to 10, but that's not.
I think you're clearly someone who achieves great things because you're very hard on yourself.
Yeah.
But I do think it's also very important, while we're talking about your journey, to also reflect on how far you have come. And to be running your 11th marathon in New York yesterday, given that there was a point in time where walking up a small hill was a struggle, I think don't ever stop to forget that.
I mean, look, the wins of this, I had 2 70-mile weeks. I never had a 70-mile week before my life. And so I have to believe that that's going to be, a deposit in the bank for these next training blocks where I've now done that before. And who knows, maybe I showed up yesterday with some tired legs. I don't actually know.
Okay, we're going to move on to our this or that.
Yeah.
So we know that the marathon in New York is special to you. Would you rather never be able to run that marathon again, but you can do any other marathon in the world, or you can, but you have to run New York barefoot?
Every time? Or one time?
One time barefoot, and then you can have it back.
Yeah, I'll do the barefoot. I'm not giving up New York.
And if you had to run it every time barefoot?
I don't know that I'm giving up New York, but that would start to get pretty big. I think I'm good for one barefoot John. And after that, I'll take the other marathons and I'll chill in New York.
Okay. Would you rather train all year in the rain, in miserable weather, and then you race and the weather is perfect? So you have 364 days of training and they suck, but the race day is flawless conditions. Or you train all year in flawless conditions, and then the conditions are always crappy on this trip.
Give me the crappy race day conditions. I'm a mutter. Like I like a little dirt in the mouth and a little, I actually think I do a little bit better when the conditions yesterday were perfect.
Maybe it's too easy for you.
I don't know what it was, but
Okay, final one. Would you rather never hit a PB again, but love every run, or PB in every race, but hate training?
I'm in PB in every race just because I'm competitive, and that's just honest, The hate in training is still the entire purpose is really in the process. And so I don't necessarily love every training run, but
They're meant to suck a bit.
yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, our final question that we love to round out the podcast with every time is for you to design your dream race. So for this, how far is it? Where in the world is it? What is the food and drink that we celebrate with at the finish line? And who gives out the award?
Yeah, so I mentioned it earlier. I mean, it's got to be a 5K because running for me is meant to be inclusive. And that is still a distance where some very talented athletes can show up and race. And folks can walk it in 40 or 50 minutes and feel a sense of accomplishment. So for me, the shorter the distance, the more inclusive the race is. And so it's a 5K. And I am hosting my 5K in my hometown, Haddonfield, New Jersey, because it's this 1 square mile town in South Jersey that I owe a lot to, fundamentally, and just in terms of the way I grew up, and it would be very nostalgic for me. We would be eating probably cheesesteaks. It's right outside of Philadelphia, so there's really good cheesesteaks, pizza, and then for me, some really good sparkling water because I am sober. And for the folks that, care to partake in an adult beverage, we'll have some kegs of beers and some cocktails flowing. My dad is still a big Coors Light guy, so, And then who would give me the award or who would give out the award? I mean, I could go 2 ways with this. I could go the way of, like the person that I want to meet most is a guy by the name of Eddie Vedder. He's the lead singer of Pearl Jam, which is my favorite band. And he's, just got a lot of wisdom and his music has really helped me. But I feel like I would have to go, the route of mom and dad, because they're just such pillars in my life and they've done so much for me and they're still here. And I would just want them to be a part of this day.
Sounds amazing. Well, we should make it happen. Would love to do that. Sounds amazing.
Have you brought any of these to life yet as podcast guests?
I've even had to answer the question and I haven't brought my own dream to life.
Okay, well, we got to get on that first.
Some of them are more ridiculous than others.
Yeah.
Some of them I think would have some logistical inconveniences. A 5K in New Jersey doesn't sound quite as impossible as some of the ones we've had to date. But no, sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's simple. Simple is better. Simple is better for me. And the more people you can include in the process, I think the better.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us the day after the marathon when you were probably aching and needing a nap. But thank you so much for your time, sharing your journey. And we're very excited to see where you take everything and your running next.